Hello, BookTube. Today I'm going to talk to you about The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. There is a lot to love in this story. There's a lot of fun, adventuring. It is a quest story. But ultimately, I do find some of it frustrating. And so I'm going to do a little bit more close reading than I normally do in these sort of discussion, question type summing ups that I'd like to do of the books I've read, in hopes of inviting you into a conversation with me about them. So if some of my questions seem a little bit pointed, please forgive me for that reason. But I wanted to like this book more than I did. And I think one of the major reasons might be in reading the front criticisms of it here, where they really seem to appreciate its humor. You know how when you have to explain a joke to somebody that doesn't find it funny, that it never works. I didn't find it funny. I think for several reasons, but anyway, we'll get into that. Okay, let's talk about some good things here. With these sorts of, well, let's begin with the background. How effective did you think blurring the boundaries of various folklores and mythologies worked in this book, wherein we have Robin Hood and Celtic and Norse and Greco-Roman references. We even have fourth wall breaks talking about, like, I'll write you a reference letter, sort of HR talk, bringing in the modern era. Perhaps that's one of those winks that was supposed to be funny, but it took me out of the story and out of the world. So how effective do you feel that sort of pan-mythological background was for you? Do you feel like it was one of those amazing fusion restaurants? Like, I never knew a sushi taco could be so delicious. Or do you feel like it's one of those pan-Asian restaurants that does bad Chinese, bad Korean, bad Japanese, all just sort of bad gluey mess? I know for fantasy, fairy tale books like this, nowadays people are very interested in defining its rules of its magic, the rules of its world. How did you find that was done here? I think that, for example, there might be some interesting pieces here. On page 38, I read, "Real magic can never be made by offering up someone else's liver. You must tear out your own and not expect to get it back. The true witches know that." I think that there is some interesting magic system stuff like that, although that sets us up to expect a big sacrifice, which doesn't really come. Well, it does, but of course it's a fake out. So there's some bits like that are quite detailed, but then we have this sort of thing that happens a lot in this book, where it says, like, a clever magician might be acquainted with all manner of odd potions and powders, poppets and filters, herbs and banes and unguents. We get this sort of all manner of stuff more than once in the book. And so there I feel like the magic is sort of, undefined and ultimately a little unsatisfying for me. So what do you think of that? Okay, what else? We've got the stock characters here. We've got Schmendrick, the bumbling apprentice. We've got the King Lear, believe it or not, Lir, and he is world weary. We've got, of course, The Last Unicorn. Why is that the title of this book? Is The Last Unicorn the main character? Did you find that The Last Unicorn was sort of less developed and grew less through the book, perhaps with the exception of that time when she became a human, as I did? It's hard, right, because that world weariness that I think was supposed to be driving the unicorn was also in King Lear, was also bled into other characters at various points, so it sort of painted its brush across all of the characters that way, kind of took away a little bit. I felt from the beginning where I met the Last Unicorn and thought that was sort of their deal. Although there's also a little bit of the wide-mouthed frog joke going on with the unicorn. I feel, the wide-mouthed frog he's born, he's an orphan, doesn't know what he likes to eat, goes around and mother giraffe, why do you feed your babies, right? And everywhere he goes, and people say, oh, whatever they feed their babies, and the wide-mouthed frog still has no idea what it eats. It can't catch the gazelle, it can't reach the high tree leaves, and then it comes to the alligator, and the alligator says, I feed my babies wide-mouthed frogs, and wide-mouthed frog goes, ooh. So there's that kind of quest, right, where the unicorn is trying to find others of its kind, find out what it is to be the unicorn. I get the quest, but how did you find that quest? Did you find it compelling? All right, what else can we say here? Here's another fourth wall break, and tell me what you think of this. Haven't you ever been in a fairy tale before? The magician's voice was kind and drunken, and his eyes were as bright as his new money. The hero has to make a prophecy come true, and the villain is the one who has to stop him. Though in another kind of story, it's more often the other way around. And a hero has to be in trouble from the moment of his birth, or he's not a real hero. It's a great relief to find out. Prince Lear, I've been waiting for this tale to turn up a leading man. So here you can see that they're sort of giving away the game, and they're saying these characters know that they're in a fairy tale. Did you find that amusing, I guess, or did you find that interesting? It could have been interesting. It definitely could have. How did you find that? Lear as a leading man, I don't buy, because Lear doesn't even appear until the middle of the story. They sort of go and escape the carnival bit, which was kind of interesting, with the harpy, and meet each other for the quest. And then about halfway in, the unicorn becomes a human, and they have these interactions with the prince, and Prince Lear and the king. The king was not Lear. The prince was Lear. My bad. See, I even got confused because the king is so world weary. But anyway, Prince Lear as a leading man, I don't know if I buy it, but okay. So what else can we say about this? Okay, look, another section that I noted down here. So there's this part sort of at the end also towards the end, where it's sort of meta, another meta passage here. It says, the swineherd cannot already be wed to the princess when he embarks on his adventures, nor can the boy knock at the witch's door when she is away on vacation. The wicked uncle cannot be found out and foiled before he does something wicked. Things must happen when it is time for them to happen. Quests may not simply be abandoned. Prophecies may not be left to rot like unpicked fruit. Unicorns may go unrescued for a long time. What are we making of this passage? This sort of vision of the functions of fantasy, speculative fiction, and perhaps this book's place in it. How do we feel about this sort of meta level of analysis? Okay, now there is also this level of writing, down to the level of the writing that can be a little problematic as well. For example, there's a lot of what I would call overwriting. Did you find that there was a lot of overwriting? So for instance, at one point, one of the characters is going to be put to work in the castle, and it says, oh, she'll be a scullery maid, a wench, a this, a that, 17 words. I can't find the passage right now. We can sort of feel like the author didn't make a choice of one of those words, and perhaps it would have been better that they did. But what I will say this, is that this author takes those chances. So there are a couple sections that I noted down, if I can find any, where I quite like the writing, the risks they take. One was like he had his scimitar smile poised at their neck, something like that, which other people would call overwriting. But I think it's worth it to take those risks, to find those diamonds. There was another one that I thought was even more beautiful. And the king at one point is looking, the unicorn as the woman is looking out at the sea, and the king is like, oh, the sea is the only thing good to look at. This king sort of has the anti-Midas touch. Everything he touches dies. Um, but then he looks in the eyes of the unicorn, doesn't know it's a unicorn, and says, I see the green leaves in her eyes and this and that. There's some beautiful writing that I think is gotten at by taking those chances. And so I do like that. I think one gets away with it a bit more in genre fiction, but I think that literary fiction can get a little workshoppy. I know we've got our first Iowa Nobel Prize winner out of the workshop of Iowa, if you know that style of writing. I can safely say that because I've never read her yet. I'm sure she's a wonderful writer. But anyway, there's this sort of safe writing where, yes, there are no clunkers in the entire book, but one feels that they maybe played it safe a little bit. So I don't mind an author taking some chances like that here. How did you find the prose? There were times when I found this sort of like all manner of lists taking me out of the book. So that I would say that sort of writing is a problem. But in other parts where they go for sort of a beautiful metaphor, I think that's quite all right. Okay, so here's one of those that I really liked. His voice was the end of her. She vanished when he cried her name, as though he had crowed for day. I think that's beautiful, and if you think that's overwritten, well, we agree to disagree. So I like taking those risks for that. All right, what else can we say about this? I think we've touched most of the major points. I have a ton more underlined. The thing with BookTube for me is, as a literary critic, taking that close reading and all that training and techniques that we do as critics and sort of putting it aside for the purposes of a book list discussion, being sort of more general about themes and general sort of trends of the book, and maybe a little bit where it places in literature with other books, and the characters vaguely in the little plot, without entering too much into the very specifics of the prose. But I miss that because I love that, but it's too much, I think, I don't want this to be a 30-minute video, right? You guys want to watch 8-minute BookTube videos, so let's keep this short. So we covered the fourth wall breaks, the magic system, the sort of pan mythological stuff. We didn't get into the names too much. We talked about why is a raven like a writing desk? Oh, that was a portion that I had that I thought was a good example for you of some overwriting, where unfortunately the author chooses to quote Shakespeare. The world is too much with me. Was it that? No, it wasn't that. And then goes on right after that to sort of elaborate on Shakespeare's. I'll put it in the comments to elaborate on Shakespeare's metaphor, and you shouldn't try to cap, call back or do what do they call that, pin, add on to Shakespeare, right? Let Shakespeare have the last word, I think, is the general safe way to go with quoting Shakespeare. So that was a sort of jarring moment, but also in both ways, like why is Shakespeare suddenly popping into this book along with everybody else in the kitchen sink, and then also sort of, the prose didn't shine comparatively to Shakespeare's poetry. But anyway, a lot of people really, really love this book. I can recommend it. It's a good read. It's a very fast read. And like I said, there are maybe some things that I wish, that it was so close to doing better, especially since this is the sort of stuff I love, playing with different mythologies, colliding them. But I've seen it done, in other works, other books, more to my liking. Maybe I won't mention them now. Maybe I'll do a video on one that I think does it really well. But you'll enjoy this. It's it's a story. It's a quest story. So the ending too. We have to. I knew there was something I want to talk about. The bathos at the ending here. So the Red Bull sort of only is mentioned sort of briefly throughout the book, and then only really comes in at the very end. So how is it that the Red Bull is so much realer to me, or what perhaps to you as well, than this last unicorn that we've been hanging out with the whole book? Anyway, so that's the big fight at the end, and here it goes. It says, This time there was too much of it for him to hold. It spilled through his skin, sprang through his fingers and toes, welled up equally in his eyes and his hair and the hollows of his shoulders. You see the overwriting there. There was too much to hold, too much ever to use. Now we're getting repetitive. Still he found himself weeping with the pain of his impossible greed. He thought or said or sang, which one was it?